Well, round one of the NBA draft starts tonight. And while last week brought some frustration with the Alex Caruso trade and no Sixers attached to Alex Caruso, instead going to the Oklahoma City Thunder, as the text said there on the graphic, this one provides a lot of pain for a lot of Sixer fans as Mikal Bridges is traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the New York Knicks. We'll get into all the details with our emergency pod here on this Wednesday. Kyle Newbeck, Derek Bodner, Devon Givens here with you. And fellas, something huge happened last night, of course. And Kyle, you've written a lot of words about it already on allphly.com on the Anthony Gargano show this morning. So we're going to start with Derek here on this one with everything that really went down with this one. A surprising one, I'm sure, for some, for Mikal Bridges to be traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the New York Knicks, at least last night. Maybe not the fact that it wasn't going to happen at all, but more so, Derek, that it happened so quickly last night before the draft started tonight.
Yeah, no, I always like a good emergency podcast 14 hours after the trade happened, but Devon had other plans. Clearly did not get a heads up that it was happening. Certainly not happening now. Otherwise, I'm sure it was a great show. Anyway, no, look, it is surprising. Not so much the Knicks, because the Knicks had a ton of picks, and obviously there is a Villanova connection. And I think he's a player that's going to fit them really well. But it's surprising just because there was almost nothing that we heard of it. And I think that's probably a good reminder that a lot of the major deals you don't hear weeks and not everyone is a star demanding out publicly. Sometimes things are happening in the background that you don't know about. Look, that's a lot of picks, man. That's a lot of picks. So it was 4 unprotected picks, 1 unprotected pick swap, and 1 more protected pick. We're talking about 6 first-round picks for a really good player and a really good fit. But that's a lot of picks. And I think the immediate response when I mentioned that on Twitter is, well, look, what do they need a 27th pick in the draft for? Who's really banking on young kids? And it's like everyone forgets that you can use picks for something other than drafting a 27th pick and having him fail to develop. Like we're seeing it right now. You can trade those for players. And they are going to be it's going to be tough for them to not pivot. And look, I think the Knicks are in a pretty unique spot because they have so much depth filled out, because they have the Brunson contract so far under market that it's easier to keep this kind of depth and add more to it. And because Bridges is so drastically underpaid for the next 2 years. So there's reasons why this was they were the right team to take that swing. But man, that's the inflation in star trades nowadays. You're talking about 6 first-round picks, 5 of them pretty much unprotected for a really good player, but someone who is still, I think, a third option. Like he is being, I'm going to say this. I don't want to compare him as players, just as situations. It does remind me a little bit of Rudy Gobert and the fact that might end up being the right player. That might be the right person to target. It might improve them drastically. It's just, that's a lot of picks. And you had to give up a lot of picks because the Nets weren't going to trade him. Like they felt no pressure to do so. So you're kind of behind the 8 ball in that respect. But there's just an inflexibility that comes with going all in on a player at this stage. Is Bridges good enough? I certainly think he is adaptable enough. And we talked about that a lot. But I do wonder a little bit, do the Knicks have enough offensive firepower to truly win a title? Not to be good. They're obviously going to be good. They're going to be 55 wins, and they're going to be probably one of the 5 to 7 true contenders in the league. But do they have enough offensive firepower? And if they don't, do they have enough flexibility to do so? They probably do. And I think the reason why I would, like I said, my first reaction is, holy crap, that's a lot of picks. But my second reaction is because Brunson and because Bridges are on such below market contracts, that's probably the right team to drastically overpay for a player, especially because they're close. So it's, look, I'm never comfortable trading 6 first-round picks, 5 of them unprotected. That's not really my nature. I think when we were doing the back and forth that we had a couple weeks ago, I was like, well, can you do 3 picks on a swap? That's sort of where I was for Bridges. So two additional ones with pretty much all of them unprotected. It's a lot, but it was going to take a lot. I guess that's a long way of me saying, I don't know.
Yeah, you could have saved the audience a lot of time there by just saying you don't know. So I would say this. I want to focus on one part of what you said, Derek. You used the word inflation, which I think is very important here. I've brought up many times on the show. We've discussed the Gobert and the DeJounte Murray trades and how those two specifically kind of screwed up the trade market. I tend to agree with the sentiment that this is the right team to overpay because of all the role players they already have in place. That it's not a Phoenix situation where they're trading for a star or getting rid of all their depth. And then it's like, well, what the fuck do you do? Like, how do we put together a real team? Like, I do think the Knicks have an advantage there. But look at the other side of it from the Sixers perspective as we think about inflation. What reason do we have to believe the Sixers can execute a trade for an actual needle mover without having to deal with the same inflation problem?
Oh, sure. Yep.
And that is kind of the issue they're going to run into here. Like, the reason that I, for a long time, have been banging the Paul George drum prior to all this recent noise about, opt-in and trade and opening up some other avenues for him, is specifically because you don't have to move stuff, and then those picks can be used in a market that has clearly gone crazy on what it costs in pure pick value to get good players. Like, this was not the right player for the Sixers, because if they traded 5 firsts for Mikal Bridges, they still have a ton of work to do. They don't have all the in-between pieces. And yes, they would have had the immediate cap space to sign somebody like a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to make maybe one impactful addition otherwise. But then you're largely using small pieces of salary cap, exceptions, and minimum deals to get the rest of the roster together. And my concern at this point is not that different from what I've been preaching since around the deadline. Like, I see teams like New York make this type of move. You watch how Boston built their team, which was first they made smaller moves for a guy like Derek White. They then make the Porzingis Marcus Smart trade. Then, as the next opportunity comes with Drew Holiday being on the market, they push even more chips in. But they already had the nucleus and a core in place that they were able to keep competing. Being at not square one is not fair, because they do have Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. But from the rest of the team to be at this stage right now, where you still have so much to do, and the star market for trades is this inflated, and it costs this much to get Mikal Bridges, who, again, I like a lot. I personally wouldn't trade 6 first-round picks, or what's equivalent to 6 first-round picks, for him. They are in a really tough situation here, and they don't have a lot of great options. And so for me, the big, we use the word pain for the graphic here. The pain is not that you didn't trade for Mikal Bridges and you didn't trade your entire history away. It's that these situations keep happening where it's like, oh, wow, that player is getting added to a more complete situation. And the Sixers are just this blank slate that we don't have any idea what they're going to look like. And Daryl Morey would probably tell you, my job won't be done until the trade deadline. Like, judge me by the trade deadline, what the team looks like. Like, okay, but how many opportunities pass you by as other teams get better? They need to do something. Like, I don't know how you can keep spinning we're going to wait and preserve flexibility. Something's got to give here. I don't know how you sell it to, like, forget about the fans. I brought this up a couple of times the last day, and forget about Joel Embiid on top of that. How do you look at Tyrese Maxey, who he absorbed all the risk last season of any young player in his position, the vast majority of them get that max extension last summer, and you don't have to worry about all the downside of getting injured and how that impacts your future and your contract. And you do that under the pretext of, hey, the cavalry is coming. We're adding people. We're getting somebody legit next summer. We're going to flesh this team out. And then if you strike out, essentially you made him do that for no good reason. Like, he's a good kid. I don't think he's the type to cause trouble. He's got a very powerful agent who's going to remember things like that. And there are a lot of factors here that I don't think people are cognizant of on a day-to-day basis. It's like, well, we didn't get that guy, and that's fine. This could go south really quickly if they don't nail this next few weeks. I would say that.
So the grab bag of picks that, of course, we've seen with Houston being discussed in some conversations. We already know about Oklahoma City Thunder making the move that they did, and now New York doing their part in blowing up, of course, one of the players that Sixer fans really, really want to see added to their basketball team. To both of your points, that's the fact. They have the grab bag to do it, to go out there and even overpay for whatever player it may be, whether it's Mikal or someone else, because they also have roster depth in their war chest already where the 76ers do not have. And while they do have this cap space to go out there and improve their roster, to add to the talent base outside of the 4 players that they currently have, it's going to take a lot, and they have to really, really maneuver in certain ways. So when players start to go off the board, where many talked about, well, this player is not going to be available because of the fact that New York or Utah, Brooklyn or Utah is not willing to get rid of their 2 players there. Well, if you don't have the ability to make the move like that because of the grab bag of picks, without having a roster already set in place where you can jumble things around a bit and move a player like Bogdanovich on a big number, then it's going to be really tough. And that's why tonight is really important for them to start things off, whether it's trading the pick 16, keeping it, whatever they're doing. But they really have to get creative here and have that backup plan of what needs to be done from OG Anunoby. The questions about that now with Mikal going to Brooklyn, and so many others from Brandon Ingram, as you two targeted yesterday as a possible way that they lean more so than anything else now because of the Paul George news and all. They really have to hit on this thing because Boston is Boston. New York got better. And the fact that we don't know what they're going to do now. We don't know if their number one option, if it was Paul George, that thing has gone in a totally different direction. That's sailing in another different spot where it might stay out west. And now you're starting to hear even other bigger names where Kevin Durant's name is being thrown around and all kinds. But Philadelphia's name is not being attached to that, of acquiring that player to come in to improve their roster. So they absolutely have to hit on this one this summer, because you're right, Kyle. The fact that Tyrese Maxey is going to sign this extension, and his agent, while Maxey might be that good guy, at some point frustration does start to creep in and start to boil over. And with it, when you have a powerful agent like that in your ear talking about, hey, we need to get you out of here. You already got paid. Let's put you in a better spot. That stuff really starts to creep into a person and a player that, while he may not be thinking it, that's what the job of the agent is there for, to kind of highlight it and say, hey, we need to find a better spot for you. So tonight is going to be huge. The next few days are going to be huge for this basketball team, for this organization, to keep the Sixer fans happy and put out a pretty good product on the floor come the fall.
A couple quick things. Brian Knight in the chat has a good point. You have to disown Mikal now. There are no Knicks fans in this family. Can't do it. I'm sorry. Those are the rules. Bunch of people then talking about OG. I don't think they did this trade to lose OG. Obviously, if the Knicks send out more salary than they take back in a trade, they get capped at the first apron. Currently, on what's been reported, they would be sending out more salary, but they have time. This deal can't be official until we get to the new NBA year, which starts June 30th. Because of that, they have time to rework it. And basically, if they are able to reconstruct it where they send out more salary or less salary than they take back, or do I have that back? They have to send out more salary than they take back. Then they would be hard capped at the second apron, which gives them about $11 million more flexibility to bring OG back. Bringing OG back has to be a priority for them. I would be surprised if the consequence of this is they lose him.
Look, it's going to be.
Did we lose Devon?
Devon's frozen.
They get that to happen? Oop. So,
he's back. He teleported.
I'm here. I'm sorry. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the OG Anunoby piece and how all that plays out. We did have a super chat also. Brian Pumper says, don't have to rotate the earth on a 47-degree axis for the stars to touch and create an equinox to see the Big Dipper blow this thing to the moon.
What an analogy. Oh my God.
Man. By the way, who did you say? It was that Gavin? Who did you say that was, Derek? I don't own any New York Knicks apparel, so don't worry about it.
That was Brian Knight.
All right, my bad, Brian. But
he's right.
I'm sure that will change.
If you ever bring a Knicks jersey into the studio, we're gonna have words. I love you.
I was going to bring one in. I didn't say I was going to bring it in. I just said owning some stuff.
Whatever you do at home, that's fine. Just Can't touch studio. Can't
So
Fair.
I want to circle back. So one of the positives, if you want to try to spin it, is that the Knicks have been looming as this potential destination for, one of the reasons that people speculated the OG situation was up in the air was that the Knicks are trying to preserve flexibility, right? Like they are looking at the Donovan Mitchells, the Karl Anthony Towns, the guys who might ask out in the immediate future as guys who might end up coming to New York, and that they were both from a salary and a pick perspective trying to keep things fluid. Well, now they are effectively ruled out of all those types of conversations. And so if we look at the Paul George situation specifically, I know that Brian Windhorst this morning threw cold water on Paul George to the Sixers, and that's a real point of consideration here. But if you look at it for Paul George, but also a bunch of other guys who theoretically would want to go to New York, the Knicks are now kind of off the board. There really is no realistic path to acquiring these other guys in trades because they don't have the picks. They're not going to have they don't want to move these salaries of these guys that they're acquiring. And so that at least takes them off the board. It's a small silver lining because ultimately they got better. They got a very good player. And now they're having already beaten the Sixers in the playoffs, whatever asterisk you want to throw on it, they have now markedly improved. And the Sixers still have their whole proof of concept to put together. So does it help with the Paul George sweepstakes specifically? Maybe. I do think that Houston is still heavily in the mix there. I think Golden State's in the mix there. I also think I wouldn't be shocked if he just goes back to LA after it's all said and done. I still think that if I'm betting on a single outcome, it's that Paul George stays with the Clippers. That just feels like the most likely thing to me. If they were to do a kick the can type of offseason, and I am not endorsing or supporting that, I've been pretty clear on how I feel about that situation. They are in a decent position to go out and get somebody. But again, you still got the Oklahoma Cities of the world looming. Still have some of these other teams looming. They are absolutely not out ahead of the pack by any means. And it's hard not to feel like at least a little doom and gloom today, right? It is just one move. There are plenty of other guys you could target. It was an exorbitant price they had to pay. But as these names start falling off the board, the Alex Carusos, the Mikal Bridges, Paul George has eyes elsewhere, it seems. You start getting boxed in and boxed in and boxed in, and you just have to look around and say, they better figure out something or it's going to get spooky around here real quickly.
Well, folks, a bit of a teaser here because we have a big show tonight. Beginning at 8 p.m. tonight, we will be live on location for our first PHLY Sixers NBA draft show live from Garage Fishtown. That's tonight at 8 o'clock. We'll be there a little bit early. So if you're there early, come through, come chat with us for a bit before we get started at 8 p.m. All three of us will be there. Brianna will be there. We hope to see you. We saw that there were a lot of people who have RSVP, but there's still room for more if you want to come through. Sixers memorabilia will be given away. PHLY apparel as well. Tickets to the home opener that for the 24-25
I was gonna
campaign.
That's not great.
That's not great for the 24-25 season. And it's all presented by Coors Light and Rothman Orthopedics. So we hope that you're able to come out, join us. If this is the beginning with the Alex Caruso part, Mikal Bridges being traded to the New York Knicks, we can only imagine what other things may happen tonight. The rumors are already out there. Things are already starting. It's going to be a busy next few days. So we hope that you're able to join us tonight. Again, 8 o'clock, Garage Fishtown, presented by Coors Light and Rothman Orthopedics. Kyle Newbeck, Derek Bodner, myself, Brianna will be there. We'll all be there. We'll all talk through it, right? A little session. If things are not going the way you want, we'll have a session and maybe you can sit there and talk with Kyle with the Coors Light as the beverage king that he is tonight. So,
well, the beverage king has one piece of news to forward as we're sitting here. Apparently, Jake Fisher just reported that the Sixers and Commanders held a meeting about how to approach the second night of the NBA draft this year. So, if I know they're owned by the same person or same group, we should say. But look, if there's anybody whose managerial prowess you want to study, it's the people who've been running the Commanders.
Geez.
That's because they've been such a successful organization for the last 3 decades or whatever since they last won a Super Bowl.
The collaborative front office has really evolved. This is a new wrinkle.
That's
anyway,
not good.
I hope to see
That's
you all
not
there.
good.
We'll have a much better time hanging out in person than all of us are thinking about all these stupid Sixers things. So
And look,
it'll be a good time, everybody.
Being
See you
doom and gloom is a
now.
lot more fun when there are adult beverages in the building. So
That's correct.
Real
I'll be
time.
sticking to my Ollie Pops probably.
It's Real Time's birthday. So Real Time, happy birthday.
Hey,
everybody.
happy birthday, Real Time.
We'll see you all out there tonight. Thank you, Bree. And thanks for everybody checking in on the Emergency Pod. Check in with us tonight beginning at 8 o'clock. If you're not with us there, you have to tap in live on the show as the NBA draft gets underway at 8 p.m. We'll talk to you then. Thank you.